Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce dropped a new episode of their podcast today. And there was a teaser that was put out that kind of implied that Jason and Travis might have been not the most comfortable episode for them to do. And I do want to give people just a little bit of context here, because I often get lost in the fact that I live in a little bit of a bubble because I'm very active on Twitter, or at least I monitor Twitter pretty actively. I might not tweet a ton, but I'm on there a lot. And I pulled up something that happened over the weekend, right? Like across two different events, there were two things that happened that involved Swifties, because, as we know, the Swifties have very much gotten behind Travis Kelce because he is dating Taylor Swift. But I brought this up because the other night, I couldn't help but notice that there were two things going around that were wildly unpopular, at least to people who don't identify as Swifties. The first one, in the last 24 hours, this is from a couple days ago. In the last 24 hours, some insane Swifties have taken their parasocial relationship with the musician to an unhealthy level, bullied former Eagle Jason Kelce's podcast into deleting a tweet, then saw CJGJ's Instagram story and started leaving his mom's restaurant 1-star reviews. Now, CJGJ put up a thing on Instagram. This was it. Should have stayed with that thick, with a picture of him confronting Travis Kelce with the implication that he should have stayed with his previous girlfriend, who is decidedly not a doppelganger for Taylor Swift, we'll say. And so some Swifties started leaving 1-star reviews on his mom's restaurant, which drove a lot of those people insane. But this is the thing that I thought was more pertinent. So New Heights, after the Super Bowl, now I don't know the exact time that this went up, but New Heights put up a tweet that says, "Congrats to all our Birds fan 92%ers and Jason's Eagles teammates on an incredible season." And then there's a quote, "There's a lot of people in the Philadelphia organization that feel like family to me," with his quote, right? And there are pictures of Jason Kelce. All 6 of these images have Jason Kelce in them with people that obviously he had some kind of connection to. You got Howie Roseman, you have Nick Sirianni, I believe you have Jalen Hurts there, you have Lane Johnson, a couple of the other offensive linemen. I could very clearly see Jordan Mailata, massive man, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. And it says Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl champions. This tweet didn't live online for a long time because at some point thereafter, New Heights took this tweet down. And what many people kind of connected the dots on was, oh, that coincided with a massive backlash from Travis Kelce fans and vis-a-vis a bunch of Taylor Swift fans who got upset that they were congratulating Jason Kelce's former team and, in a sense, dunking on Travis Kelce's current team. Okay, so all of that happened, right? And then on Tuesday, at like 3 in the morning, 2:22 in the morning, Jason Kelce felt compelled to put a novel up on Twitter to defend himself and to defend the fact that he's really proud of Hurts and Sirianni and the entire team, and also acknowledging the fact that like this was a hard game for him to watch because he loves his brother, he supports his brother, and that, I mean, he says that a big reason why they took down the tweet was because he thought that it had too many pictures of himself and he was not part of this Super Bowl winning team. And so like that was a big part of why they took down the tweet, right? Like that was the crux of the argument. But for whatever reason, he felt that he had to, at 2:22 in the morning, to address haters, right? Because you had the Swifties who presumably had some influence on them taking down this tweet, or at least that was the perception. And then you had Eagles fans who then went back at the Swifties because they felt like the Swifties pressured New Heights to take down the tweet. Whole bunch of bullshit, right? So then you go, all right, that has to be it. Like that's the end of it, right? He addressed it, whether you agree with it, whether you disagree with it, doesn't really matter. It's not your life. It's not your brother. It's Jason Kelce's brother. He's allowed to support his brother. And in fairness, they have a very close relationship. And if you have a sibling that you're close with, you are going to defend them to the death. That's how this works. That's how family works. Now, he went onto his podcast, and for whatever reason, they dove into this. Now, I will tell you right away, I support the fact that Jason Kelce supports his brother. And I understand that this game was not easy for him because as much of a loyalty as you feel to the Eagles organization, because he spent their whole career there, became a Super Bowl champion there. There's a whole lot more that we're going to get to in a second. That was like a lot of good that has come from being affiliated with the Philadelphia Eagles organization. At the same time, he's a human being and he's cheering on his brother because he spent his entire life with his brother and he has spent his entire life supporting his brother. And so, of course, it's going to be harder for him than many people are going to give it credit for, okay? I want to get to as much of this clip as we can, though, because I think it's important that you hear from Jason Kelce about why that game was so hard. And then we'll kind of render a verdict here about whether or not his stance was fair. And I'm going to give you a little bit that you might be surprised by and a little bit that you won't be. All right, let's go over to Jason Kelce, Travis Kelce, on their show talking about how hard it was for Jason to watch Travis's team get blown out by his former team.
What was it like for you watching this one?
Terrible.
Yeah. You tweeted out something.
I didn't even want to tweet it. I think I would rather do it here because you'd be able to talk more.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what happens. Whatever you say is going to get clipped or touched and put out. It sucks.
So, in fairness, he starts off by saying, I didn't want to put out the tweet. And presumably the tweet that he didn't want to put out was the 222 tweet where he, again, put a novel out there that a lot of people on Twitter aren't going to read because people have the attention span of a goldfish, but he did get that off his chest initially. And then he notes the fact that things are going to get clipped up. Well, of course they are. That's how podcasting works. That's how media outlets work. But okay, we're going to continue.
I've always supported you.
Every step of the way.
It was hard to navigate because obviously I'm trying to say that I have people on the Eagles that I love, and I also have you. And I tried to make it known that I was rooting for you.
I think that was clear.
And it felt like I couldn't be right. Felt like no matter what I said, some people were going to skew it and say that I'm rooting for the Eagles. And some people were going to skew it and say that I was rooting for the Chiefs or Travis. Yeah. And
can we just have a quick moment? Who cares? Like, this is where I get to the who cares what people say? Like, at that point, if you're Jason Kelce, right, you're allowed to have loyalties to two camps. The team that you spent your entire career with, that you won a Super Bowl with, that you built fame off of, right? And your brother, who you love and care about. And in fairness, 2 years ago, when they went head-to-head in the Kelce Bowl, Jason Kelce mentioned, like, it's going to be hard because either we win and you're hurt, or you win and we're hurt. You know, we as in the Eagles team. So I thought he did a good job of explaining that 2 years ago. I don't know why anybody would be confused or feel the need to pile on, but we'll keep going.
And it sucked.
That's the world we live in, man. I know I always had your support, and I joked around saying with your cheering for the Eagles, listen, you and Kylie are there in Philly and have created one of the most beautiful situations that I've ever seen. You guys are.
So there's a lot of truth there. And again, it's his brother. Of course, he's going to support his brother. You could be loyal to your team. You could be loyal to your employer, but ultimately isn't your main priority in life to be loyal to your family, to the people you love and care about the most. I think that's how this is supposed to work. And then Travis Kelce gives him not the out, but the little bit of the leeway that Jason and his wife Kylie have built a beautiful family and they've built a great thing in Philadelphia. So it's understandable that he would still feel tied to the organization.
They're loved by the community out there. Everything from the foundation stuff that Kylie does, both of you guys do, to the countless amount of hours and years you spent in that organization, giving it everything that you have. You don't have to explain anything to anybody.
I think that's fair. I think Travis Kelce is 100% correct. Jason Kelce doesn't know shit to anybody. If somebody wants to go after Jason Kelce on Twitter, you could feel free, but I think you're probably a jackass. If you remember a few months ago, there was the clip of Jason Kelce getting out of a car. I think it was in LA, right? He was like getting out of an SUV, and there was somebody who was heckling him and said like all kinds of awful things about like him going to hell or something. Like, it was really bad. And then Kelce came through the fence and like talked to the guy, and the guy's like, I'm so sorry. I support you. And like, we thought that there might have been like a mental illness thing in that clip, and it was kind of jarring. And that was when we were like, Jason Kelce needs like to have security, like really on top of this stuff, like something bad could happen, right? So there are times in real life where people are going to confront him, but like the Twitter of it all, at some point you do have to try your best to not focus on it. All right, keep going.
As long as the people right here, I know who Jason Kelce is, and I know my brother and what his intentions are, and nobody can ever confuse that. I think the people in the Philadelphia organization understand exactly who you are and what you represent and how you were saying it.
I can't imagine that there was anybody within the Eagles organization who felt betrayed because Jason Kelce cheered on his brother. I mean, really? Like, if you work for the Eagles, are you really upset that a guy cheers on his brother? Like, I can't imagine that's a thing. I don't know if that's what Travis Kelce was implying there. I don't know if somehow word got back to them or back to Jason Kelce that people were upset within the organization that he didn't. I don't even know what Jason Kelce was wearing to the Super Bowl. I don't remember seeing. I don't know if he wore his Eagles jersey. I don't know if he was wearing a Kelce jersey, a hat. I have no idea. But, like, nobody should feel betrayed because he cheered for his brother.
It was very, very hard to watch. Yeah. As much as I love the Eagles, as much as I love the city of Philadelphia, there was not a ounce of me that and I know that, like, I don't know. I tried to correlate that I was rooting for both sides the whole time and that I was going to be happy and sad regardless.
It's a unique situation then.
So he gets emotional, which is fine. What are we getting emotional about? He didn't betray anybody. He didn't betray his brother. He didn't betray the organization. Why be upset? No, he says that this was hard. Why was it hard? Because Travis Kelce's team got their teeth kicked in. It was never close. I mean, hell, on Monday's show, like, I didn't even really touch on the fact that up 27-0, Jalen Hurts completes an absolute dime to Devontae Smith to put the team up 34-0 in the third quarter. Like, this was an ass kicking of epic proportions. So if you're Jason Kelce and you're watching your brother who, like, did not look happy in that game, and Chiefs fans, by the way, have been going after him on Twitter for the one interception, or the one time that Patrick Mahomes got hit, and it looked like Kelce just kind of stood at midfield, didn't move for 5 seconds while Mahomes was running for his life. There are Chiefs fans who are now going after Travis Kelce. That was not a good game for him. It certainly wasn't a good game for Patrick Mahomes, but again, like, it was a total blowout. So you feel bad for your brother, and at the same time, like, I don't know, like, what are we doing? Anyway, we'll keep going.
Nobody can relate to. Nobody can relate to this.
I just don't know how to articulate that. I'm happy for some of the Eagles, but at the same time, I was miserable during the game watching you not achieve your success again.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. It sucked, and, like, it felt weird for me not to be cheering.
Well, that's fair, because I think mentally you do go into it saying you're going to be happy for either outcome, and ultimately you have more loyalty to your brother. But, like, you probably do go into it thinking, you know what, if the Eagles win, I'll still be happy for them because I like a lot of the people. But then the reality sinks in that your brother's heartbroken. Okay.
That's what it felt like. It felt like, why the am I not as excited? And I think it was just a fucked up emotion. And I'm so happy for Jalen Hurts. I'm so happy for Nick Sirianni and all these guys that have been through so much. And it was just really I did not anticipate it being that hard.
So I think if we take that clip in its entirety, and as I mentioned, there's like a 6.5 minute version of that going around. I don't see a problem. I'm sure, I have not listened, but I am sure that there are people on sports talk radio today that are going after Jason Kelce for not being loyal. I'm sure that there are going to be people who do a very similar thing that I do on YouTube or wherever else that are going to say Jason Kelce wasn't loyal. Here's where I'm at. Can I say there was one thing about it that I just fundamentally disagree with? I don't think this conversation should have been had on their podcast. I don't think there is a good that comes from it. I think that him putting out the tweet at 2:22 in the morning, a night or so ago, probably is all that needed to be done. And he could have just very quickly touched on, my heart was broken for my brother. I'm happy for Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, a lot of the people at the Eagles. It was a really screwed up kind of feeling. I'm happy for those guys, but I'm heartbroken for my brother, and that's where I'm at. I don't think that the rest of the conversation helps, right? Because you're burying your soul, and the people who are going to dunk on you are still going to dunk on you. And the people who aren't going to give you the benefit of the doubt are still not going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Like, I don't think that segment, even the 6.5 minute version of it, I don't think that segment is going to change people's minds, right? There are going to be people in this area who are going to point out the fact that Jason Kelce probably should not have said that it was hard for him to watch his former team curb stomp his brother's current team, right? Why? Because Jason Kelce's football career has been built largely on things that happened with the Eagles, from the Super Bowl speech wearing the Mummers outfit to literally everything that has happened since, the ability to get onto countdown shows, the ability to build this podcast, which, by the way, uses Eagles colors in its branding. I don't think I've seen a time where the podcast is promoted using Chiefs colors. Jason Kelce is the draw to the show, or at least he was in the early going. Again, I'm not crapping on this guy. I think he did a smart thing. He did what you're supposed to do in that position, especially when your career is winding down. You pivot to something else, and he's very good at this. He's very good on countdown, and he has a late night show that is based in the Philadelphia area and uses Eagles branding. So it's very hard, I think, for some to disassociate Jason Kelce, the former Eagle, and a guy who has used a lot of Eagles-related colors and imagery in this post-football career. There are going to be people who are going to say that he's only using that to benefit him, and now when the rubber met the road, he turned his back on the team. I don't feel that way. I think it's a totally bullshit way to look at it. But there are people who will look at it like that because this is the world that we live in. I, as the resident pro wrestling fan, I have to experience, especially on Thursday shows, on It's Just Wrestling, like we have a bunch of people who are WWE loyalists, AEW loyalists, and a lot of times they just lob grenades at each other and they shit on one person when they leave one company and go to another. The other side does a total 180 where they hated the person at the other company, but now that they're at their... This kind of stuff happens in pretty much every walk of life now. It's a total shame. It really is. It's a legitimate shame that it happens. But I don't think that there was anything that could have been accomplished in that segment that was going to change anyone's mind. And by the way, I totally support where the guy's head's at. Ultimately, you are going to support your family more than your former employer, and I don't think that makes him a bad guy. And if you're somebody who's actually upset and thinks that Jason Kelce is a horrible human being because he thought it was hard to watch his brother's heart be broken on the field and watch his former team kick his brother's team's ass, I don't have to tell you. I don't think there's a lot of hope for you.